We're not going to stop until we destroy the earth. It's the best joke I've heard in a while. We're not destroying the earth. We're destroying ourselves on earth. If you've ever been to a museum, you'll see and read about a bunch of things that once upon a time was functioning on a ground that's still here. The same amount of water that's on earth today is roughly the same amount of water that's ever been on earth. I've never seen water shoot up to space, nor have I seen the skies part to make a deposit. There's nothing new under the sun is amongst the truest statements ever made, along with Father Time, the internet, and of course, reality being undefeated. How can a man destroy earth with things given to man by the earth? How can a man destroy a planet of which he has yet to explore 95% of its oceans? If you want to feel big, stand over an anthill. But if you want to know your true size, sit on the edge of the Grand Canyon. It's a truly humbling experience. But Earth has a way of doing that, as it has always shown and will continue to show its power over man. In 2023, we still don't have the technology to predict when the Earth will shake, when the volcano will erupt, when, where, and what category twister will fall out the sky, and what path that hurricane is truly going to take. The audacity of man. I mean, we literally live between the margins. We have a 4 percentage point air oxygen window of which we are allowed to breathe. Our body temperature has a 4-degree window of which it is comfortable in. Barehanded, the biggest, strongest, and most skilled amongst us will lose to that grizzly bear 100% of the time. It's our ingenuity that makes us apex beings on this planet. Our desire to explore, conquer, and live limitless. We've created means to deal with that grizzly, that lion, that hippo, although that hippo still don't give two dams. We didn't stare at the sky and just wonder. We found a way to be in it. Nor did we stare at the horizon. We put boats on water, saddles on horses and camels, wagons on trails, and we went out to sea. We tied ropes around trees and went into those caves. We grabbed a waist-height stick, sacked a canteen full of water, an apple, grabbed some nuts off a nearby tree, and we trekked along the creek to see where it goes. We are natural explorers. That's why we take what seems like unnecessary risks. The year was 1995 when Dr. Bob Ballard stepped onto the campus of Gwendolyn Woolley Elementary School, very much to the delight of my science teacher, whose name I may have forgotten, but I believe it was Mrs. Grimes. He spoke for less than an hour, and everyone who wasn't 11 years old or younger appeared to be captivated by the world-renowned marine geologist who discovered the Titanic wreckage. I've never forgotten his name. To use today's words, in the world of exploration, he was one of those ones. But we'll get back to that. Let's take 2011 for 500, Alex. My wife and I are enjoying a night out. On my laps is the usual. Nachos and cheese with extra jalapeno and an oversized Sprite. My wife is picking through her popcorn, layered butter of course. She's already thrown down her hot dog, in which she only enjoys because it reminds her of her days as a teen worker behind the snack bar. It's where she learned her only Spanish, ¿Qué quieres mantequilla? Or do you want butter? As so I'm told, by her, so I can't confirm nor deny. The scenes were intense. This franchise needed this film to be exactly what it was hyped to be, and so far it's delivering. In what seemed like the first opportunity of silence, a voice yelled, "They got Bin Laden!" It took a second for those words to register in our minds before the theater turned into a live sporting event, and the crowd erupted into cheer, as if the home team had just scored. No one cared about the put your phone away rule for the next 2 minutes as we all checked news outlets to confirm what we surely thought we had just heard. I must have been rooting for the away team that night because I had no reaction. I was more interested in watching The Rock chase Paul Walker, Vin Diesel, Tyrese, and Luda through Brazil. Later that night, it dawned upon me. While I'm sure it's not the first time it's happened, it's the first time I've witnessed people celebrate the loss of life. The next decade will be a tough one, filled with high-profile incidents that will leave many lifeless. Trayvon Martin, Philando Castile, Sandra Bland, George Floyd, and so many others. It would enrage us to think that there was laughter at the receiving end of that news. To think one of these young men or women could have been fighting for their lives all while the internet was in a meme and GIF frenzy. May 5th, 2022. I'm at Arrow Canyon Solar Field. I'm on an underground crew. I am walking a trench to clear it of large rocks and other debris, being careful not to step on our fiber cable and watching closely for snakes and scorpions, both of which we've seen a lot of up until this point. I'm preparing this section of the trench for inspection so we can get it covered back up and move on to the next part of the circuit. I'm finishing a previously downloaded live stream of Kevin Samuels, and I need more content to get me through the day. My signal in the trench is trash, so I'll take the next ladder out. I'm anticipating that Kevin would drop some clips from his IG lives the night before, as I only followed on YouTube. But instead, I'm met by a post from MREC TV saying that Kevin had passed. So I called my wife and asked if she had heard and whether or not the news was actually confirmed through a reliable news source. She told me she had, but then she told me something I couldn't believe, that the internet was in a meme and GIF frenzy. People were celebrating his death. This time there were no nachos and cheese with extra jalapenos. It was the first time I've ever seen someone laughed at for dying. While I don't agree at all, I understood why people celebrated the news of bin Laden. I mean, the media was certainly much more powerful back then. A lot of people disliked Kevin when he was alive, so the reaction to his demise, while extremely sad, was somewhat predictable. But question, have you ever felt the discomfort of the unknown? It's a gut-wrenching experience. When my entire family was searching for my then 4-year-old son who slipped past the adults' attention at his grandfather's house and took a walk outside the neighborhood to the adjacent subdivision to see the ducks, our world stopped. When we received the news that he had been found, it was relieving for everyone except me. Now don't get me wrong, I was extremely grateful that a lady had seen my son cross 5 lanes of traffic and noticed that to be odd. So she immediately jumped into mother mode and went and secured my son and contacted the authorities. Extremely grateful for that. But my mind was simultaneously met with the thoughts of what could have happened. I cried my own creek that night. When I sat outside my brother's apartment waiting for the police to enter and perform a well check, I was rekindled with that feeling. I knew the results when the female officer stepped outside and wiped her eyes before walking off. The officer who told me tried to give it to me as lightly as possible. I told him I was prepared for it. The next 6 to 7 phone calls I will make will be the toughest I've ever made in my life. I've said it before that there is no way you could lose someone that you absolutely love and celebrate the passing of someone else. It's not possible. The feeling is unmatched. It's like a part of you just packs its bags and leaves for good. You're never the same. It's why I don't understand why you could not even know of a person 5 days prior to their final moments and speak on their downfall in a joking manner. And for what? These people have families that were worried sick about them, looking for answers, waiting around the clock, hoping and praying for the best. And you guys were joking. Those people were just exploring. The same way we did as kids when we left our house and we went into that desert or those backwoods and we found materials to build clubhouses and we interacted with animals and we found spots on earth that we felt belonged just to us. The same way you do every time you take a hike or travel to a new country or try a new dish. You're exploring. The Titanic is something that interested them and they wanted to experience it in a different type of way. What's wrong with that? I mean, what have we become as humans when the fact that a person is rich and living life to the fullest, the thing that we all strive to do, becomes a justifiable reason to dislike them and make fun of them in their final moments? Not only do their families have to deal with living without them forever, they now have to deal with living around all of you. The whole country rooted for as many people as possible to walk out the rubble of those towers when they fell, as we stood in disbelief. There were no jokes being made on MySpace as people stood on their ceilings trapped, pleading for help, everything they own on their bodies because the levees broke. The entire world rooted for that soccer team to make it out that cave. We're humans. And up until now, we have always rooted for humans to survive. At 38, I now understand what I didn't at 11. I understand why those teachers and administrators looked at that man with such admiration. It's because going out on a limb and doing something that the world may look at as pointless and accomplishing your goals is something to admire. It's the reason why we know where the Titanic is in the first place, along with a host of other ships. And if we fall short, we leave behind a lesson that allows the next man to come behind us and make it further along that point than we were able to go. That's how we advance the human race.